There's another element in our lives that we don't think much about, and that's the element of faith. You think of the faith that you have to have every day. You have to have faith that your wife didn't put poison in your coffee this morning. You have to have faith in her. She might have felt like it, but she didn't. You have to have faith in the bank. When you write a check and sign it and you have money in the bank, you have to have faith that the bank's going to pay it. You have to have faith in the government. When you pull out a dollar bill, now I know it's shrinking, but you have faith that back of it is a dollar, that people will accept it as money. Faith, 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 everything. Everything we do is by faith.
The Oxford English Dictionary defines religion as the belief in and worship of a superhuman power or powers, especially a god or gods. Since the dawn of the first light, religion has been a topic that many either stay away from or draw near to. For some, Christians, Catholics, and those practicing Judaism, going to a local church to pray and study the Word of God with other men and women is a common practice. Families will gather around a table, hold the hands of their loved ones close, and thank their Creator for the meals and things that have been provided to them. Christians often practice not thinking of themselves and putting others first, and while most of them are often wolves in sheep's clothing, the idea of putting others before yourself and showing kindness is an idea in today's world that seems alien. While in the tall skyscrapers that pierce the heavens, scientists who believe in evolution and the idea of something coming from nothing gather together in a lab to study and worship the earth. To them, not understanding every part of our world is a fate worse than death. Knowledge is the one thing they seek every day. Not to say that they already aren't smart. Their degrees and certificates that hang on the wall or collect dust in a brown box are proof of their abilities. But instead of being satisfied with what we know now, scientists keep reaching for understanding and knowledge they don't have, which in turn makes them worshippers of the earth and the universe. In the East, visiting a shrine for a blessing or a prayer is done when trouble or good things happen. For those in the Pacific Ocean and East Asia, religion isn't just a part of their daily life. It is ingrained into their homes and practices like everything else. It is about as common as water flowing through a stream. There are idols, shrines, people praying before a meal, and thousands visiting the Meiji Shrine on New Year's Day. The point is, everywhere you go, any town, home, shop, restaurant, mountain, everyone believes in something. Even those who say they don't have a religion are lying to themselves. Whether you believe in God and how Jesus Christ died for our sins, so that we could be with Him in heaven for eternity. The Greek gods like Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, and monsters live among us. That there are nature spirits that we must reestablish order and balance between. Or that this universe was born from the Big Bang. When we die, we turn into a tree, get reincarnated, or just nothing. That we have no purpose or hope here on this earth. Anyone and everyone all around the world has a religion. It is a part of our lives every day, except for one place: our schools. The hallways of your school, unless stated otherwise as a private religious academy, are often filled with rules, events, trophies that sports teams have won, pictures of classmates, but nowhere in the entire school will you find a triptych, a Tanakh, or even a Bible. The school boards and the government have one thing on their mind, and that is to separate school from religion. You are there to learn about your teachers, English, math, the history of the world, science, and so many other things. If a teacher mentions religion outside of a history class, or even talks about their faith, the school board will silence them. These acts and decisions are, in a way, persecuting students silently, and in turn, making them run away from their faith. The teachers and school boards decide when and which religion should be spoken or discussed. If you step out of line, you are silenced. It is their way, their rules, their beliefs, nothing else. They are the gods who decide your fate, or to put it in simpler terms, it is the way of the gods. Nothing more, nothing less. And while not to the same extent, the way religion is silenced and persecuted is similar to how China, the Ottoman Empire, the Greeks and Romans, North Korea, and so on, make sure that religion does not challenge their ultimate authority. Religion has always been a part of the human story, and it always will be. Yet today in public schools across the United States, religion is often misunderstood, silenced, or treated as a threat. Under the U.S. Constitution, public schools must walk a careful line. They cannot promote a religion, but they also can't suppress it. Students have the right to pray, the right to express their beliefs, the right to form religious clubs, the right to wear religious clothing or symbols, and the right to study religion academically. Yet across the country, confusion about these rules has created fear, a fear of lawsuits, fear of controversy, and a fear of making the wrong call. But that was never the intention of the Constitution, and it does not reflect the rights of our students and teachers. The article Religion in Public Schools, explained by E.V. Bald, explains how, under the U.S. Constitution, public schools cannot promote or advance any particular religion, and they must respect the individual religious beliefs of students and staff. However, in today's culture, most schools don't practice this. The article, Religion in the Public Schools, by Mitchell T., explains that some Americans are troubled by what they see as an effort on the part of federal courts and civil liberties, advocates to exclude God and religious sentiment from public schools. Such an effort, these Americans believe, infringes on the First Amendment right to free exercise of religion. So while religion should not in fact be persecuted or silenced, the world we live in today says otherwise. Those who practice religion, which is everyone, take on a different persona while in school. Across districts, stories repeat themselves. A student prays quietly before lunch and is told to stop. A teacher removes a Bible from her desk after a parent complains. A social studies unit skips religious history entirely, just to avoid trouble. Students wearing religious clothing face comments or pressure to blend in. None of this is required by law, but all of it is happening. And when schools overcorrect, the result is clear. Students learn that their faith is something to hide, not something that is protected or respected. Whether it's ignoring their family's traditions, customs, meals, they all do what their friends and teachers tell them to do. They are in fact quite literally living a lie and listening to the way of the gods. The word interloper is defined as someone who becomes involved in a place or situation where they are not wanted or are not considered to belong. They are intruders or invaders, and when students go to school, they are taught how to become someone they're not, which by the very definition makes them interlopers when they return home, with different ideas, beliefs, and how the world should be. Which of course means that it's up to the parents of that household to teach their children right from wrong. And if no one is there to tell them, they are already lost.
What's the main religion in Japan?
It's Shintoism, yeah.
So it's not really a practiced religion. I saw an interesting thing that was like 90% of Japanese people go to shrines, but something like 90% don't identify as religious. People don't see going to the shrine as being religious.
It's more like a lifestyle, like a Japanese custom that everyone should abide by.
Like if you went to church to pray once a month, people would think you're pretty religious.
Yeah, 48% are Shinto, 46% are Buddhist, and 1% are Christian.
仏教です。仏教。
じゃあ仏教ってどんな宗教ですか？
南無阿弥陀仏。仏様。先祖。わかんない私。
お寺とか神社に行くことってありますか？
なんか出雲大社とかそういう観光地とかやったら行くかも。
そっかそっか。正月は行くね。地元の神社。
To understand why protecting religion matters, we have to step back and look at the bigger picture. Take Japan, for example. Many Japanese people say they're not religious, yet Shinto and Buddhist traditions fill their daily lives. Through festivals, rituals, temple visits, and the celebration of their ancestors, religion is subtly and beautifully everywhere. Just like in America, through holidays such as Christmas, Hanukkah, baptism, and quinceañeras, whether we call it religion, culture, tradition, or identity, belief is part of being human. Trying to remove all that from schools isn't being neutral, it's erasure. Most Americans know very little about world religions. This isn't harmless, per se, but it does fuel stereotypes, fear, conflict, and bullying. Experts call it religious literacy.
And maybe some of you remember this hilarious scene in 2006 when Stephen Colbert stumps Congressman Lynn Westmoreland when he couldn't name the 10 Commandments, which he was fighting so hard to keep standing in a courthouse in Georgia. Now this is what we call religious illiteracy, which is when people lack knowledge, sensitivity, and understanding of other religions. Religious illiteracy can also be described as lacking the basic knowledge of the world's religious traditions, the diversity of expressions within a given tradition, and the profound role that religion plays in social, cultural, and political life.
In a diverse nation like ours, it's a serious problem. Schools have the opportunity and the responsibility to fix it, not by promoting religion, but by teaching about religion the way we teach about history, culture, and literature. When students understand each other's backgrounds, they become more empathetic, more thoughtful, and more prepared for the world beyond school walls. Protecting a religion in school does not mean promoting a religion. It means protecting students, and it also means allowing personal prayer, supporting student religious clubs, making space for religious dress and expression, teaching about religion in academic subjects, training staff to understand the actual law, not myths or fears, and, finally, creating a climate where students of every belief feel safe. This is not just legal compliance, it's educational excellence. I mentioned at the start of this video that religion is in everything we do, even showing a Billy Graham video who discusses how faith is in everything we do. This is correct, of course, but to prove my point further, let's take a look at some examples. In my intro, I discuss how if you walk into your town, home, shop, restaurant, mountain, everyone believes in something. Every single book, movie, video game, and art made by someone shares their faith in what they believe in. And nowhere is this more evident than the Legend of Zelda series. Zelda is no stranger to religion. In fact, the first game in the series, titled The Legend of Zelda or Zelda 1, which was released in 1986 for the Famicom Disk System and later released internationally in 1987 for the NES. Link's shield is seen with a cross, and while many may be quick to point out that it's just a cross, there is also an item called the Book of Magic, which very closely resembles a stereotypical depiction of the holy book of Christianity, the Bible, with a cross on its cover. However, those who dive deeper into the game's development will find that the Japanese version of the game actually never called the item the Book of Magic. It was instead called the Bible, Why it was changed remains a mystery, but that's not all, as even in the game's sequel, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, which released a year later in 1987 in Japan, and a year in 1988 in North America, there is an item that is shaped and named as the cross, which is a very important Christian symbol and relic. Its use in the game is albeit quite useless, but it can ward off ghosts or evil spirits in-game, and the fact that the developers decided to include it at all is quite shocking. However, it doesn't stop there, as a third game in the franchise just after that, titled A Link to the Past, which was released in 1991 in Japan and 1992 in North America, has official artwork made by the developers at the time, which depicts Link kneeling before a crucifix. It was evident at this point that the Zelda team making these games had very strong feelings for Christianity, most of which were of course positive, since the religion was never depicted in a negative or crude light. But around this time was when the developers decided to incorporate their own nation's religion. The fourth main installment in the Legend of Zelda series, which needs no introduction, is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, which was released in 1998 in North America and was the first 3D Zelda game ever released for the new console, the Nintendo 64. Ocarina of Time wasn't only the first game of its kind, but it was also the first Zelda game in the series to discuss the Japanese homegrown religion of Shintoism. In the article by KillScreen author Jack Flanagan, he argues that Shintoism's influence on video games is seen all across the board, and he even states that it isn't a coincidence that Miyamoto felt inspired by his childhood outside Kyoto and drew Shintoist elements into to create Legend of Zelda. The Shinto religion is known for its great love and respect for nature, while purification is seen as a key aspect of all ritual activity in Shinto, and it exists to reestablish order and balance between nature, humans, and deities. In Ocarina of Time, the world that players see first is through the eyes of a child. The forest that players first explore as young Link can almost be viewed as a playground, with ladders, ramps, tree houses, secret crawling holes, and mazes. Here, the children are taught to never grow up, much like in the children's story of Peter Pan, and the fairy companion that each child is given is a mark of a true Kokiri, the race that Link and the children of the forest are known as. However, when Link is called to leave the forest to abandon childhood thoughts and ambitions, the player slowly begins to see the world through a different lens, which is through the eyes of an adult. In the 7-year time skip, Link awakens as a young adult in a world that before was once full of wonder, beauty, and life, to a kingdom of boredom, ruins, and death. This is in turn because of the game's antagonist, who is rightfully titled Ganondorf, the King of Thieves. He takes over Hyrule in his lust for the Triforce, a sacred golden power, and turns the once bountiful land of Hyrule into a world that is plagued by curses all over. He steals like a thief in the night the beauty and wealth from the land's fruit of life. The forest that was once full of children playing and laughing now lies empty and is filled with monsters and hideous creatures. While the children hide in their homes to stay away from the evil outside, the same can be said for the rest of Hyrule. Death Mountain is constantly erupting, with the Goron race facing extinction. Lake Hylia is empty, with no water, and in constant winter, freezing the aquatic Zora race. Villages are being attacked by evil spirits, and Gerudo Desert is plagued by constant sandstorms. It's only once Link, as an adult, purifies each dungeon and rids each land of its infestation, placed there by Ganondorf, that the Kingdom of Hyrule starts to heal and return to its beautiful splendor. This echoes the very theme and message taught by Shintoism, that performs purification rituals to counteract the threat of pollution, which is considered an obstruction to the flow of life and blessing from the kami, who are seen as gods or nature spirits to those who believe in these practices. And while no gods or nature spirits are being worshipped or idolized during these moments in the game where Link purifies the land, what is clear is the message that the Zelda team and Nintendo are telling the player. which is the importance of striking harmony with nature. Greed and hatred are a pollution to its natural balance, and if we do not respect it, nature or higher power will surely retaliate. Who knows what might happen to those who are consumed by greed? Now, while Christianity and Shintoism are obvious examples of religion in video games and media, some other examples are, of course, the 1998 game released for the PlayStation 1, Xenogears, where the first thing the player sees when starting the game isn't a fantasy world, a spaceship, or even a human being, but instead a Bible verse from the book of Revelation in chapter 22, verse 13, which states, "I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end." In fact, a lot of the Xenogame series, which include not only Xenogears, but Xenosaga and Xenoblade Chronicles, often not only quote the Bible word for word and practice its teachings, but the characters themselves are named after ones found in the Bible and go on similar journeys. Noah, for example, who is the main protagonist from Xenoblade Chronicles 3, is chosen by a higher power and given a gift or ability called the Ouroboros, and fights a man called Zed, who wants the world to stay the way it is, a place full of death, violence, wickedness, and corruption. But Noah and his friends fight for their freedom and the new world that is coming and fast approaching, inside of a place called very fittingly the Ark, which contains the souls of those chosen to be a part of the new world that awaits after the destruction of the old. And while there are many more examples of how religion is a big part in video games, such as Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Persona, and so on, the last example I want to share is from a popular book series that, like Ocarina of Time, needs no introduction, and that is Harry Potter. Protective Christian mothers and fathers for years have been known for not allowing their children to read or even watch the Harry Potter books and films, and that is simply because its story revolves around a young boy learning magic. However, the closer you look at the story of Harry Potter, the more obvious it becomes of how it's not a story about magic, potions, witches, and why your child should play with tarot cards, but instead a story about love, forgiveness, redemption, and the battle between good and evil, which ironically make it more of a Christian story than anything else. A good example of this can be found in Harry Potter's main protagonist and antagonists, who resemble both Jesus and Satan, respectively. When looking at Harry Potter, it's first important to understand his origin if we are to understand how he is similar to Jesus. The death of Harry's parents and the lightning bolt scar on his forehead are the cause of one thing and one thing only: a prophecy. In the story, we meet Voldemort, who is not only a terrifying figure who everyone fears, but a man that wishes to remain in his position of power. But because of a prophecy that states that a boy born at the end of July would be able to defeat him, Voldemort decides that he will kill Harry and attack his home so that way he can remain in power. He attempts to change his destiny and prove the prophecy wrong. Those familiar with the story of Jesus can already start to see the similarities between the two characters. In the Bible, we meet King Herod, who is not only a terrifying figure, who everyone fears, but a man that wishes to remain in his position of power. But because of the prophecy that states a new king of the Jews would threaten his own rule, Herod, who is known for his paranoia and cruelty, saw the child as a threat to his authority and a threat to his power. Herod then ordered the murder of all male children under the age of 2 in Bethlehem in an attempt to eliminate the new king. He attempts to change his destiny and prove the prophecy wrong. Another example of how Harry himself is similar to Jesus is when Harry walks into the Forbidden Forest to face Voldemort, which mirrors Jesus' walk into the Garden of Gethsemane, where he was overwhelmed with sorrow before his crucifixion. Both characters in this moment feel a sense of fear and reluctance, but move forward out of a sense of duty and a desire to save others. Just like Jesus, Harry descends into hell to face his ultimate enemy, only to be resurrected and overcome evil so he can save humanity. The final example can be seen through the story's antagonist, who, as I mentioned before, mirrors the story of Satan perfectly. A good example of this is seen in the Bible, where Lucifer, before he becomes Satan, was an angel, a light bringer, and his rebellion against God led to his fall from heaven. Tom Riddle, in comparison, before he became Voldemort, was a handsome and seemingly ordinary boy who received high praise from everyone. He obtained many awards, achievements, and was considered to be high class. However, after their fall, they reject their original identities and names. Lucifer, whose name meant light-bringing, was a name from his past, and he was later known as Satan, meaning adversary, after his fall. Tom Riddle rejects his name as well and the human part of his identity. He chooses to become Lord Voldemort, to erase his past and his connection to his human heritage. The list goes on as we can see how both characters' fall was due to their pride and pursuit of power, among many other things. Now, while the Harry Potter films depict a much more cartoonish version of Voldemort, his character in the book actually resembles Satan to a much higher degree, with the black hooded cloak, red eyes, and snake included. All these examples are proof of not just how religion is in everything we do, but in all that we consume as well. What we eat, wear, listen to, read, watch, everything. Everything we do is shaped by beliefs, values, and traditions, whether we acknowledge it or not. And so I leave you with this: we are all guided by something, and that something cannot be silenced. For schools to deny the right to speak freely about our beliefs, whether religious or philosophical, it goes against the very fabric of who we are as individuals. It is not for institutions to act as the final judges of what we should believe or express. The true spirit of education is in its freedom, the freedom to explore, to question, to speak, and to grow. This is not just about religion, it's about the right to be human. So instead of placing limitations on the conversation, we must strive for a system that celebrates our differences, fosters mutual respect, and allows every voice to be heard. Let us not forget what makes us strong is not just our unity, but our diversity. This is the way forward. This is the path of the true believer.